Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A story from a few weeks back. Matchroom and DAZN have agreed to a 3-year extension to broadcast deals. I remember when Eddie Hearn first went all in with DAZN, people questioned his rationale. Was it really right to split ties with Sky Sports and go all in with DAZN? We have had some time to reflect, hindsight being 2020. How is Queensberry holding up these days? Their star fighter, Tyson Fury, hasn't even fought this year. How's Boxer doing? Can we really say that Boxer is doing better than Matchroom is right now? Can we really say that Boxer's shows are on par with Matchroom's? Can we really? Know that since Matchroom decided to go all in with DAZN, it's not like Queensberry hasn't staged decent-sized shows of their own. Boxer, maybe one or two, maybe. Here and now, though, I do feel like Matchroom is in a better position than they are. At least in the United Kingdom, Matchroom has a lot more to work with. That's in the United Kingdom. In the United States, it's a little bit more dicey because the PBC looks to be having the biggest year they've had in recent memory, perhaps the biggest year they've had since their inception. Matchroom is falling behind them in America. Now, a few weeks ago, Eddie Hearn stated, "I am delighted to announce this extension to our deal with DAZN in the US and Mexico," said Hearn. DAZN's schedule is without a doubt the best in the sport, and our big nights in the States and all action cards in Mexico are a massive part of that. The new deal means more undisputed, unified world title blockbusters, more 50-50 wars with the top contenders, and more showcasing the best rising talent in the region. And we're ready to provide further thrilling action and value for the DAZN subscribers. They have their work cut out for them in this region of the world because, as stated, the PBC looks to have the biggest year they've had in recent years, perhaps the biggest year they've ever had. We know that the Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia fight was a massive success. We'll see what the Crawford versus Spence numbers look like, and now they have Canelo. We are delighted to be extending our relationship with Matchroom Boxing in the United States, said Joseph Markowski, CEO North America of DAZN Group. Since we entered the market 5 years ago, we have made significant strides to become the global home of boxing, consistently delivering the best schedule in the market. 2023 will be no different, with the biggest names fighting on the biggest stages in the coming months. With our best-in-class broadcast matched with Matchroom's best-in-class promotion, we are incredibly excited about expanding our partnership in the years to come. This year, they don't have Canelo to turn to, and that cannot be downplayed. Canelo, for a long time now, was DAZN's ace in the hole, because if anybody moves the needle in America, it's Canelo. And now he's gone. Eddie Hearn stated that not every Canelo Alvarez fight was a success for DAZN. Is he shading Canelo Alvarez? Is he wrong? Is he bitter that Canelo Alvarez made the decision to go to the PBC and not stay with Matchroom? Eddie Hearn opened up about not being able to work with Canelo Alvarez. I think it's a good move for him. Of course, we always want to promote Canelo Alvarez. We never made him an offer. We didn't have a fight for him in September. We were asked to make the Bivol fight, but that wasn't possible, Hearn told Boxing Social. We've talked about that. The two teams being at an impasse over the weight at which the contest would take place, and the terms. According to Vadim Kornilov, Dmitry Bivol's longtime manager, the terms for the second fight were identical to the terms for the first. Now, you could argue that because Dmitry won the first fight, they should have sweetened the deal for him in the second. I've seen some people make that argument, though I maintain my original position that Dmitry overplayed his hand, demanding that the fight happen at 168 for Canelo's belts instead of his at 175 has left him with no fight and no dance partner. It didn't work out for him in the end. He's got to make his move, and I wish him all the best. It was an amazing run, and I'm sure we will work together again. Now, we need to look at the huge pot of money that was there for Canelo fights, and now start looking at bringing a string of big fights. 2022 was Matchroom's year, and 2023 right now is PBC's year. We are competitors. We want to win. win. We are rolling up our sleeves in order to give you an unbelievable 6 months. I'm not saying this, but honestly, DAZN is fine with losing Alvarez. It got to a stage where not every Canelo Alvarez fight is a success for DAZN. He is a massive name who's done massive numbers for us. He's always been a success for Matchroom, but it comes to a point where the broadcaster says, am I getting value? And the fights that are available. All that Matchroom had for Canelo was a Bivol rematch, and they couldn't work that out. So many critics and so many boo-birds postulated that Canelo would instead fight Edgar Berlanga, and I completely blew off that idea. That was a ridiculous notion. I never thought he was going to fight Edgar. Underneath it all, I think that's what Eddie Hearn was hinting at, that moving forward, not every fight for Canelo Alvarez on the DAZN platform, based on the options they had and based on what was going on, not every fight would have been a success. I want to pay attention to what he said. He said he's always been a success for Matchroom. He's done massive numbers for the DAZN platform, but moving forward, what were they supposed to do? Get into a haggling situation with PBC fighters, hoping they would cross the street? We know they weren't going to, so Canelo, he did the next best thing. He went to them. I could have swore that's what a lot of his critics wanted him to do. And that's what he did.
I want to congratulate Canelo for signing with PBC. I think that's a good move. At the end of the day, we're happy that he's in the same promotion that we are. I don't think we're fighting Canelo. I'm going to let that go. You know, we got to stay ready. And who knows what's going to happen in a fight or two. We just have to be ready for those opportunities that come by. And I don't know what's going to happen. But I like that fight. And I congratulate both of them to land that fight together. And I think it's going to be an exciting fight.
You notice that all the duck talk has stopped. You notice that Jose Benavidez sounds a lot more respectful when mentioning Canelo Alvarez than he was before Canelo decided to go over there, claiming that he doesn't know if the fight between Canelo and his son, David, is going to happen, and he's going to let that go. Oh, you're going to let that go now that he's over there? He said he wanted to congratulate Canelo for signing to the PBC, when really it's the other way around. Yeah. He should be congratulating the PBC that Canelo's even giving them the time of day. They got fucking lucky. That's what they got. All this hullabaloo about Canelo Alvarez fighting Charlo instead of David is much ado about nothing, when the way I see it, he's delivering you guys the fights that you claimed you wanted. You're just moaning about what order they happen in. You're never happy. You never will be. Wasn't that long ago that I was hearing Canelo Alvarez's biggest critics claiming that he didn't want to fight any slick black fighters. Do you remember that? The tribalists levying criticism against Canelo Alvarez for having not fought Jermall Charlo, who he already made an offer to way back there in 2019, or Jermell Charlo, who's all the way down there at junior middleweight. He crosses the street, he goes over there, he tries for one brother, he can't get him, tries for the other, and you guys are mad about it. Pretending he's Tiny Tim. Tiny Jermell, who posted a recent image on his social media, and the man looks to be about 175 pounds, standing in at approximately 6 feet tall, 73, 74-inch wingspan. Taller than Canelo, longer than Canelo, likely walks around heavier than Canelo. The misconception here is that because Jermell cuts more weight than Canelo, campaigns at a lower weight than Canelo, that makes him smaller than Canelo, and that's bullshit. Fucking bullshit. If you've been killing yourself and boiling all the way down to 154 for all these years, that's your prerogative, but it doesn't fool me. You're not a naturally smaller fighter than Canelo Alvarez. You or your brother. Or David Benavidez, who we all know could quite easily campaign as a light heavyweight, certainly. Making light heavyweight would be easier for him than making super middleweight. And if he really is letting go and moving on the way his father says that he is, why not move up? It's a real question as to what David Benavidez is going to do now. His father says that he doesn't know if they're going to get the Canelo Alvarez fight, and he's going to let that go. They're going to stay ready for other opportunities. Hey, you know who doesn't have a dance partner? Who? The man who beat Canelo Alvarez, Dimitri Bivol. Word around the campfire is that Joshua Buatsi and Dan Aziz have agreed to terms. Dan Aziz was recently tied to a potential Bivol fight, but that doesn't look to be happening.
Didn't David say he would knock him out?
Knock out Dan Aziz?
No, knock out Dimitri Bivol. Dimitri Bivol, who certainly has more of a profile than, say, David Morrell.
For about 4 months, Samson Lukowicz has been running around telling every man, woman, and his dog that his charge, his fighter, David Benavidez, would be boxing David Morrell in the fall, up until recently when David Benavidez himself blew off that idea, blew off that story, saying he doesn't know where it came from. Well, it came from your promoter.
Called it fake news.
Well, it's fake news from your promoter, however you slice it.
Still a lot of time left in this year. He already did the dance with Caleb Plant. What's he going to do in the fall? What's he going to do in the winter?
He says he's not fighting David Morrell. He says he'd rather fight Jaime Munguia. Jaime Munguia and his team, Fernando Beltran, they say they're the A-side.
He said, she said, that shit's not happening this year, if it ever happens at all.
David Benavidez himself doesn't seem all that interested in boxing David Morrell, and his father Jose says that they're letting go of the Canelo fight, so why not move up in weight? Why not take on Dimitri Bivol? If you can't get Canelo in the ring, what about the man that beat him? He's not busy with anything right now. Make him an offer.
Why does it feel like Team Benavidez can't get their story straight? Samson says he's fighting David Morrell in the fall.
David himself, he says that he's not. His father says they're letting go of the Canelo-Alvarez fight, but Canelo has a 3-fight deal. I'm going to assume that at least one of those fights is a David Benavidez fight. So here's what I think is going on. Team Canelo are dealing with Al Heyman directly.
Team Benavidez, they get their marching orders from Al Heyman. As you can imagine, to Al Heyman, Canelo Alvarez in that relationship takes precedence over anything anyone else has going on at the PBC.
Here's what I think. The reason that Jose Benavidez seems almost confused, like they've been left in limbo, the reason he's not sure if they'll get the Canelo Alvarez fight is because Canelo isn't on their time. They're on his, and he will get to them when he gets to them.
What are you looking for? Assurances? Guarantees?
What do you want, a deadline from Canelo Alvarez? And ETA, you don't call the shots.
Made up offer Samson Lukowicz claims he sent to Team Canelo.
Sounds like a lot of bullshit from a lot of bullshitters. Why would he deal with Samson Lukowicz when he can deal with Samson Lukowicz's boss?
Al Heyman.
That's who all these guys get their marching orders from, isn't it?
Curious as to what David Benavidez is going to do with the rest of the time left in this year, because there's a lot of it. There's still the fall, there's still the winter.
Is he only going to have one fight this year, the same way that he did last year? Last year, when he shared the ring with David Lemieux and sat out the rest of the year. This year, he's already fought Caleb Plant, but is he one and done for the rest of 2023?
That's a question that needs an answer.
Because ideally, if Canelo Alvarez beats Jermel Charlo this year, ideally, you do the fight between him and David in Cinco de Mayo of next year.
He had the fight with Caleb way back there in March.
If he don't see no action for the rest of this year, and he finds himself opposite the ring Canelo in May of next year, it will have been over a year's time since the Caleb Plant fight. Less than ideal for a fighter who's struggling to make the weight, and rest assured, David is.
Fat fucker.
Before it becomes about Fat David, it's about Jermel Charlo, who Isaac Cruz says is motivated, and he thinks he can upset Canelo.
Traidor.
Mexican Benedict Arnold says, I think that if Charlo took on this challenge, it is because he knows that he can cause an upset, Cruz said. We are going to get a great fight because Charlo is also very strong, seasoned, and more than anything, he's motivated. Cruz explains that Canelo, based on his standing in the sport, has earned the right to pick and choose his opponents. He recognizes that a second of the fan base is upset because they want Canelo to face David Benavidez. Canelo is going to reiterate why he's one of the best, or quite possibly the top pound-for-pound fighter in the sport.
I don't idealize this situation the way some others do because I don't have to.
I don't look at this sport or the fighters that participate in it through rose-tinted lenses. If Jermel Charlo elected to stand in for his brother and take on Canelo Alvarez, it's because this is a fight where the rewards are equal to the risks, if not greater than the risks. Taking on Tim Tszyu off over a year layoff at junior middleweight, a weight that Jermel hasn't made in over a year. That was a dangerous fight. You will have heard me say that before. And so is this one.
But this one pays better, and I don't fault Jermel Charlo for that. Any other fighter in that exact situation would have made the same decision.
So why should I lambast him for it? Isaac Cruz continued, I think he has done all of the fights that people have wanted to see, he being Canelo Alvarez. Right now they are attacking him. because he has not faced or has not wanted to face Benavidez. He has the right at this moment to pick and choose who he fights with. So he hasn't made bad decisions. He has made good decisions. I don't think Charlo is just anyone. Cruz, who works with Eddie Reynoso of Team Canelo, will return to the ring on July 29th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
I actually think this is a good fight.
Maybe it's because I'm being more honest about things than some others out there. Jermell Charlo has a height advantage, a reach advantage, and he won't have to boil all the way down to 154.
Leaving it all in the gym.
Going through a fat camp, just trying to make the weight for what would have been a Tim Tszyu fight, little more than just a mandated title defense, as opposed to this, the biggest fight of his career with the biggest profile.
Biggest name in the sport.
He's got height, he's got length, and he's got a judicious jab that I think he's going to try to stay behind, creating space and looking to set traps for Canelo, the shorter, stumpier fighter who's either got to slip and counter or catch and counter.
Jermell is a good fighter. I actually rate him.
He's occupied a spot on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list for at least the last 2 or 3 years.
Has shown his ability to make adjustments in the Tony Harrison rematch and the Brian Castano rematch.
A strong puncher at 154 pounds, but what about 168? See, that's what's working against him. He's not acclimated to super middleweight where Canelo is.
Timing might be off.
Not being accustomed to carrying that much weight going into a fight at super middleweight where he's never fought before, and having spent the amount of time away from the ring that he has, his timing might be off and he might be a little sluggish as the fight progresses, whereas Canelo, having seen action in the last 12 months and just being a busier fighter, busier overall than Jermell, he'll be the sharper fighter.
I think.
Stronger too, and more durable than Jermell. That's not a knock on Jermell, but let's face it, Canelo Alvarez has world-class punch resistance, a world-class chin, having shared the ring with naturally bigger fighters and strong punchers like Gennady Golovkin, like Daniel Jacobs,
Callum Smith,
Sergey Kovalev at light heavyweight, and Dmitry Bivol. He's had some ups, he's had some downs, but he's never been knocked down, and he's never been knocked out.
I think he's a lot more durable than Jermell Charlo and a stronger puncher.
It's what's working for Canelo Alvarez. What's working against him is the height, length, and jab of Jermell, and the movement.
He's got longer legs that make for longer strides to stay out of trouble, keep distance between himself and the shorter, stumpier fighter who's got to close the distance.
The strategy for Jermell might look something like the strategy they employed for the Brian Castano fight. Brian Castano, who has similar physical dimensions to Canelo Alvarez, but he's not as accurate.
He's a busier puncher than Canelo, but that leaves him open to be countered more than Canelo.
Fighting at a relentless pace, Brian Castano is nowhere near as methodical as Canelo Alvarez.
So given Canelo's physical dimensions, I see a situation where the plan of action Jermell has for Canelo might look something similar to the plan of action he had for Brian.
Moving lateral, using the ring, creating space in order to set traps, using his height, using his length.
Canelo won't be in unfamiliar territory.
He's had to deal with this kind of fight before. Opposite the ring, Caleb Plant, a naturally taller and longer fighter than he is.
I like the fight.
And I think that at least in spots, Jermell Charlo will make Canelo Alvarez work for it. Every inch.
Because he's got to close the gap before he can do anything.